Um, and yeah, and hopefully again everybody can see the screen that we have shared. So listen, I'd like to welcome everybody to this webinar where we're going to use this as an opportunity to introduce this new innovative micro-credential which we created here in DCU in the area of fintech, financial innovation, which we launched actually last February, I think. We had our first intake of students who joined the program, and they've actually now completed this, and they've got their certification from this. Okay, so obviously I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time, firstly, to come here today, okay, and to show interest in the program itself. What we're going to do is we're going to discuss the program in terms of what a microcredential actually is, in case you're unfamiliar in terms of what that is. We'll then discuss the course itself in terms of how it's structured, in terms of the content. We'll talk about the assessment piece and the accreditation piece. And then we'll talk about how you can, again, register for the course through our partner, who is FutureLearn, which is one of the leading online educational platforms globally. And DCU is a very kind of exciting partnership which has recently been signed with FutureLearn, and there's going to be further programs that you're going to see coming up through DCU through this partnership. And then we'll talk about some resources, and then we're going to open the floor for questions. Okay, so obviously everybody who is here today is clearly interested in the area of fintech. Obviously you're interested in, I guess, upskilling to some extent. So again, there may be people who are operating and working in the fintech space. There may be people obviously who are outside of the fintech space, but are looking at this as an opportunity to kind of move into that area. Okay, so, and we're probably going to have a fairly diverse range of backgrounds and possibly even geographic locations again. So again, this is a global program which we launched, and it's available globally. So again, that's kind of a nice little feature of it as well. Okay, so as I said, we're going to introduce the program, but first, maybe just to kick things off, I'll just introduce myself and Crowdfunding, and I'll hand over to Crowdfunding in a second to introduce himself. But myself and Crowdfunding are the lead educators of this micro-credential program. We worked in the development of the program, okay, as well as obviously the delivery of the program itself. My own background is I'm a professor of finance here in the business school here in DCU. I've a range of research interests, which historically would have been in the area of quantitative finance and energy and commodity finance. But more recently, I've been pulled into and very interested in the area of fintech, and this kind of interface between financial markets and technology is of real interest. And Parent and I have done a number of kind of research projects in the area of fintech ourselves, so it's kind of a focus area for us at the moment. But in terms of my own kind of research interests, going forward, where I'd like to kind of explore is this interface between fintech and sustainable finance. So there's a lot of talk about the circular economy, about climate change, about sustainability more broadly. The financing of all those initiatives is really, really important. And actually there's a key role that technology can play here. And so going forward, I'm kind of very interested in this intersection, as I said, between fintech and sustainable finance. But again, we have a track record on the research front in this space. Obviously, we're now building a capacity in the teaching front. So this is one of our initiatives, and we have a few other teaching-based fintech initiatives with some programs that are going to be rolled out and launched pretty soon. As I said, I'm Professor of Finance, but I also then I hold the role of Director of the Irish Institute of Digital Business, which is our largest research centre here in the Business School, which is focused on the area of digital optimization and transformation. Now that's, as I said, is the largest research centre in the business school, largest number of faculty and academic staff who are associated with the centre, and also the largest kind of range of research projects and funded research projects ongoing at present within the school. Again, we focus in this research centre, the IIDB, we focus on, as I said, digital optimization transformation across a number of different areas, which I won't go into today, but you can check out our website for those details. But one of the areas is the future of accounting and finance, and it's within that research team that Pierangelo and I co-lead the research agenda around fintech in particular. So you will see the IIDB reference later in the presentation, and we'll actually point you to some resources which are available through the IIDB that might help you determine whether this is the right program for you, and maybe if you're new to fintech would allow you to learn a little bit more about the fintech space and about some of the innovations that are happening, but also about the Irish landscape and the international landscape in terms of new opportunities, new companies which are emerging and so on. Okay, so we'll touch on those shortly. So that's the kind of introduction to myself.
Yeah, no, that's a decent result for us if we just have to get it a CV, and we'll see where.
Yeah, sorry, there was just a little bit of overlap there. So that's an introduction to myself. At this stage, I'll hand over to Pierangelo to introduce himself and talk about his background and expertise. And as I said, then once Pierangelo has introduced himself, we'll then move on to talk about the concept of a microcredential, and then the specific fintech microcredential we've created here in terms of the structure and the content. So Crowdfunding, would you like to introduce yourself there?
Thanks, Mark, and welcome everyone to this webinar. My name is Pierangelo Rosati. I'm assistant professor in business analytics here in DCU Business School, and I had the pleasure to work with Mark and this fintech microcredential and in the Irish Institute of Digital Business. My background comes from strictly related to accounting and finance originally, as my PhD was in that space. But then over time, I moved a bit more, I moved away from pure finance, pure accounting research, looking more on the data analytics front. So nowadays I'm, as I said, I'm assistant professor in business analytics. So the scope of my research tends to be a bit broader than just finance. I look at all the applications of data analytics in the business domain. And then of course I have a huge interest in the fintech space, cybersecurity, social media, and probably one of the main areas where I'm looking at the moment is that try to measure the business value of information technology. I think the fact that if you look at the duration of this course compared to the traditional course of that you can find in any college, you will notice that short courses like this tend to be taught by one lecturer only. But the fact that there are two people here working on this module, and with two different approaches to it's kind of coming from two different research domains. I think it's a signal that it's a slightly different finance course than the traditional ones, because we really wanted to bring together the finance side and the technology side of things, trying to do something which was very meaningful in terms of from the practice point of view and very up to date. And so, Mark, over to you if you want to go ahead with the next slide.
Great stuff. Thanks a million, Pierangelo, for that. Actually, I'll just close that down in case it's blocking the screen for people. So as I said, what we're going to do first is, I suppose, introduce the concept of a microcredential to you first, and then I'll hand over actually to Pierangelo, who will talk about the structure of the fintech microcredential to you. But I suppose in terms of a microcredential, it's very much a hot topic in terms of academia at present, in terms of university education offerings. It's seen as, I suppose, almost like the future of education, whereby you're going to see these kind of short, concentrated, specialized courses which will be made available and which will be accredited. And which can be used then, particularly in terms of post-experience, for people in industry to skill up in different areas. Okay, and there's going to be basically a suite of microcredentials that you'll see available through platforms like Future Learn, which will provide unique opportunities to skill up in new and innovative areas. So this, as I said, this micro-credential term is it's quite new, and the concept is quite new. Whereas I suppose if you look at the traditional model has always been around, undergraduate programs which leverage then into postgraduate programs in the form of, graduate certificates or graduate diplomas, or ultimately then master's programs themselves. So this micro-credential kind of model is very, very different. As I said, these are kind of separated, concentrated programs specialized in topics, but they will be credited. In fact, they can work towards diplomas and master's programs, or again, they can even be accumulated themselves into again, diplomas or master's programs themselves. So in terms of the micro-credential, I suppose there's a very good blog which Future Learn has produced. Okay, so you see a link there in the bottom left of the screen. So again, if you want to learn a little bit more about what micro-credentials actually are, that's a good blog. We've drawn on that blog, I suppose, to identify some of the key kind of characteristics of a micro-credential. Okay, the first that we can point to is it needs to be accessible. Okay, and what that basically means is that it's 100% online. Okay, and it allows you to earn an accredited professional credential, again, without actually having to be on campus at your chosen university. Again, probably in the context of COVID-19, this focus on online learning has become even more pronounced than it has been previously. And again, we're going to see pretty big changes, I think, in the third level education sector in that direction. So it's good for DCU through its partnership with Future Learn to be effectively ahead of that curve. But of course, DCU have always kind of been ahead of the curve in terms of online learning in any event through our NIDL, National Institute for Digital Learning Centre that we've established a number of years ago. But that accessibility is key. Okay, so again, through Future Learn, you'll have access to the FinTech micro-credential completely online. Now there is a time frame to it, so again, it is a 10-week program, but it is, self-directed, and it is something that you can work around your own particular schedule. Once again, you kind of work your way through the content as per the weekly designations. But again, because it's 100% online, it's you completely work at your schedule. The other advantage of being online, and particularly using the kind of social learning model that Future Learn is based on, is that you get to create a kind of a dialogue by interacting effectively with the lead educators, myself and Credential, but also then the colleagues that will sign up to the course as well. So there'll be lots of opportunity through the online platform to socialize virtually, to ask questions, to probe us on some of the content, to discuss things with your colleagues on the course itself. Okay, and again, that's all facilitated really, really well through the platform itself, which mirrors what you would see in a kind of a social networking platform. Okay, the second kind of feature of a micro-credential is that it's prestigious. Okay, so again, these micro-credentials are built by academic experts and recognized universities. But also then industry experts as well, and industry partners. Okay, but I suppose there's a big focus on the academic designed and orientated micro-credentials. Okay, so the key thing again with these is that they're accredited. So again, you will get what we call 5 ECTS credits for your completion of this module. So that's quite substantial, and you'll get your certificate of completion at the end of the course. The other thing, of course, is related to the accessibility and the online nature of the program is that it's global. Okay, so again, you will get a qualification which will be recognized globally, but also which will have a community built around it, which is global. Okay, so if you take the last iteration of the course that we just completed, we had people from obviously Ireland, we had people from the UK, people from Saudi Arabia, and we had a participant as well from Egypt, actually. Okay, so again, it is a global course available globally, and so again, the community you're going to interact with will be global in that sense. Again, another key feature which we've kind of intimated already around the microcredential that we're offering is that microcredentials generally tend to be specialized. Okay, and so they offer specialized training in particular areas of interest. And again, given the kind of continuous professional development focus, they will target areas of real interest to industry. And so clearly, fintech is a very hot topic at the moment, both within the traditional financial services entities, but probably more importantly in terms of the wider ecosystem of fintech startups and so on. So we feel with this microcredential, which is the first microcredential of its kind in Ireland, and the first that has been offered by DCU, we're kind of at a cutting edge with this content. So again, if you're working in the financial services sector and you want to skill up in fintech, I think this is a course for you. If you're operating in the fintech space already, perhaps working with a startup, and you want to learn more about the wider fintech space, again, this is a course for you. And of course, if you're outside the financial services sector altogether, but this is something that you want to get into, again, once we have a business background, this again will allow you to kind of skill up in the fintech space and hopefully move yourself then into that domain. So again, the specialized nature of the microcredential is kind of key. Okay, and hence why we focus on fintech as a kind of a key kind of area where Ireland and not just Ireland but jurisdictions globally need skills and training in that space. Okay, and the other key thing around the microcredential is the speed at which you get your accreditation. Okay, so again, because this is it's a 5 ECTS credit program. You get to complete this over 10 weeks or 12 weeks, but it will be 10 weeks this particular semester coming. Okay, so again, you get to your you get to the end of the course quickly. You get to that accredited proof of completion, that certification, very, very quickly. Obviously, that's very different to the traditional model again of maybe a grad cert or a grad diploma or a master's program, where you're looking at probably between 12 and 24 months on a part-time basis to complete that. So I suppose those are the kind of key features of microcredentials. So again, I think because the term is new, and as I said, it's quite new in academic circuits as well, but no doubt it's a new term for most people here on the call. It's important just to outline, I suppose, what it's about, and to outline some of those kind of key features of it. So I suppose on that basis, as I said, we have our program, which is Fintech Financial Innovation. It hits those things. It's accessible through the FutureLearn platform. This prestige is coming from the accreditation from DCU. It's global, as I said, because there will be people who will sign up to this program from Ireland and outside of Ireland. It's specialized with a focus on fintech, and again, it is fast that it is a 10-week program, so it's pretty intense. But again, you get to that qualification, you get to point to that qualification on your CV really, really quickly. Okay, so probably with that slide done, I'll hand over to Crowdfunding, who is next going to talk about the structure of the program and give you some insights into the content itself. So Crowdfunding, I'll hand over to you on that.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So as Mark said, the course is going to be fast. Okay, so it's a 10-week full-on, and it's divided into 4 main blocks. At the beginning, there is a shorter course, which is Intro to Fintech and Financial Innovation, where we're going to explain essentially some of the key concepts around fintech, how that differs from traditional financial products, and so on. And then we also give a bit of introduction to the type of assessment and what to expect next in terms of the engagement with the leading educators, so myself and Mark, and different tasks that you're going to be asked to do throughout the course and so on. Then the second block is all around crowdfunding and peer-to-peer lending. So in this course, we actually explore different types of crowdfunding, how the platform-based business model works, and then moving into the peer-to-peer lending, the trend that has been the trend that there is in the market, and the issues with information asymmetry, to see how platforms try to overcome these issues, the presence of, for example, of institutional investors versus retail investors, and so on. And then we move into the blockchain and cryptocurrency component. So in this course, we will actually explain what the blockchain is, how it works, the pros and cons of the technology, the limitations, without going too much into the technical details, although some technical terms, of course, will emerge. That's I don't think we can avoid that in any kind of way. And then we move into the cryptocurrency space. So try to explain the difference between fiat currencies and cryptocurrencies. And also we look at initial coin offerings and security token offerings as a measurement, as a source of finance for new ventures. And then ultimately the last block is around banking and payments, where we actually look at how fintech technologies have actually changed banking, changed payments. So we actually look at the implications of the Payment Service Directive 2, open banking movements, and so on. All these 4 blocks are actually start with explaining what the main concepts are for that specific topic, and then end with a look at towards the potential future developments. So we don't only look at what has happened so far, but we also look at where, for example, crowdfunding, blockchain, and payments are going in the next few years. So these are designed really to give you a full overview of each of those topics, so that just to bring you up to speed and see what kind of development you can actually expect in the future. And how you will be assessed. It's under the course, the microcredential is 100% continuous assessment, and it's 100% individual assessment. So there is no group assignments. And there are 2 main assignments, a literature synthesis and a written case study, which accounts for 60% of the mark. These 2 pieces of assessment are made up in a way that we actually will be able to assess both the academic side of things and the more practitioner-oriented side of things. And because, of course, this is a level 9 course, so we expect people to be able to engage with both academic, literature, and practice. For those of you who are not familiar, for example, with the Irish grading system, 40%, so the marks will go from 0 to 100, okay, so 40% is pass. And the bad news is that you only get 1 shot at each of those at each assignment. So if you fail the overall module, which is the combined, so that means that if the combined mark of the 2 pieces of assignment is below 40%, there is no receipt option. So if you decide to roll for this program, please bear in mind that you definitely need to get that right first time around. Then we can actually discuss any other questions about assessment later if they come up, but this was just to give you a brief overview of what to expect from a workload perspective. Mark, over to you for to share some useful material and resources that we have prepared already.
Great stuff. Yeah, thanks, Crowdfunding. Thanks for that outline of the course and the assessment. And as Crowdfunding says, we're very happy to answer questions. I know that there will be some questions after this. But just before we get to the questions, as I said, I'm sure there's people here who possibly are unfamiliar with fintech as a domain, but are interested in possibly using this course as a way to skill up in the domain, learn more about the fintech landscape, and learn more about
2 hours. I have a packet of crisps then, and
Sorry. So people may have some questions around again the fintech space, the landscape, the opportunities, the risks, and so on. So again, within the content that Pranjal has outlined, you know, we're going to be covering all of that for you. But again, you may want to, you know, do a little bit of reading in advance to try and, you know, gauge whether this is the right course for you. And we very much believe that it is, and that it, you know, it delivers in terms of trying to increase your professional development. But we'll point you just to two resources which we use and which we have integrated into the micro-credential that we're talking about today. The first, on the left of the screen, you can see a book that myself and Pranjal have been co-editors of. It's a book on disrupting finance, fintech and strategy in the 21st century. And this is basically a collection of academic surveys, if you want, of the academic literature in the area of fintech. And what they look to do is, I suppose, assess, you know, what have we, or what can we learn from studies that have been done in this space so far. And we cover a range of different areas, but the three key areas that we've outlined in the microcredential are covered by relevant chapters within this particular book. And we will cite this book throughout the microcredential, but also we will cite the academic literature which is referenced within those various chapters within the book. Okay, so the thing with the course is, you know, it is about professional development, but it also is an academic course which has been offered by an academic institution. So, you know, you will be pushed to, you know, look at the academic literature, study the academic literature. And the reason we feel that that's important is that, you know, with fintech, and when you look at fintech and its discussion online, you know, there's a lot of hype around fintech. And I suppose as academics, you know, we like to look at evidence, and we like to take evidence-based approaches when we're looking at these areas. So the reason we push you into studying some of the academic literature is to, I suppose, critically appraise some of what you're seeing and some of that discourse is happening in the marketplace around fintech. And I think what you'll find is that there's some very interesting academic studies which have been done, which provide some interesting insights into the fintech world, which might counter some of the kind of hype that you sometimes hear and see. So like I said, this is very much about professional development, but also because it's an academic program offered by an academic institution, you know, it is complemented with that type of work. So again, I think that's a very interesting resource. Now, this book is freely available. Okay, so you can see there in the top right of the book cover, it's completely open access. So if you just search out the title, you'll be able to access that. You'll be able to download any of the individual chapters that you wish. And as I said, you'll see the chapters that are relevant to the topics that we've outlined, but actually we go beyond just what we covered here. So again, with this micro-credential, there's only so much we can cover within a 10-week period. There's so much more to fintech, and this book covers a number of different areas that might also be of interest to you. Again, that will kind of give you a sense of the kind of academic work that you will face with the course, okay? But again, if you're interested in understanding more about the fintech landscape and some of the key topics, I would point you to what we see here on the right-hand side. So I mentioned that myself and Credential are involved in director roles within the Irish Institute of Digital Business. And within that, we have launched a podcast series, which we call .lab Radio. So the term .lab actually links to the center. It's effectively our applied research arm, if you wish. The DOT stands for Digital Optimization and Transformation, and .lab, as I said, is I suppose a virtual entity, a space where we do applied research. So as part of that, we created this podcast series called .lab Radio. It's freely available, again, through all the usual kind of online outlets, Spotify and so on. And if you sign up to this podcast series, you'll actually get access to all of the podcasts that we have published so far, but also the podcasts which are going to come along as well. So this is a very active initiative on our part. But within the list of podcasts there, you'll see that there's a number which deal with the fintech space. Okay, so in terms of the fintech landscape, in terms of peer-to-peer lending, in terms of the blockchain application. Okay. And in fact, also on the banking and payment side, we have a podcast on open banking, the open banking initiative. So again, if you're interested in the course and you want to learn a little bit more about the area, I think there's some very, very useful podcasts within the .lab radio series that you should look to try and get your hands on. And again, if you're just more generally interested in digital business, there's a whole host of other podcasts that I think you might find real benefit to having a listen to if you get the opportunity. As I said, the FinTech podcasts that we have available here are integrated into the course, so you will meet these podcasts again. But again, if you're very new to the space, you want to learn more, I think the podcast could be a really good place to start. Okay, so I guess we pointed to those two resources. As I said, they're used within the microcredential, but they're available to you now, freely available. Again, if you want to try and appraise this course a little bit more, I think it would be helpful, okay, to look at those. Okay, so I guess at this point, we'll perhaps hand over at this stage to you here, okay, to see if you have any questions that you'd like to put to us, to learn a little bit more about what we've talked about here. Myself and Crowdfunding will be very happy to answer any questions you might have, okay. Okay, so again, if you do want to ask a question, obviously you're muted at the moment, but you should be able to unmute yourself and feel free to voice your question.
Hi there, my name is Martina O'Brien. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, hi Martina, how are you doing?
Great, I'm good, thank you. Thanks for the information. Can I check with you in relation to the structure of it, the 40% for the literature synthesis and the 60% for the case study? Just in terms of further detail around that, so for the 40%, is that likely to be online assessment after each one of the 4 modules individually? And then the case study, would you have an indicative kind of a time frame, you know, that you'd have to spend on the case study? I'm just wondering what kind of workload would that case study be?
Yeah, so I said I'll just handle the first question maybe just on the literature review, because actually I or the literature synthesis, so I manage that part of it, and actually Brandon manages the case study, so I'll ask him to come in perhaps on the second part of the question. But in relation to the literature synthesis, that will be released at some point in the 10 weeks. In fact, we're actually, because we've kind of moved from 12 weeks to 10 weeks, we will be discussing exactly when that will become available. But it's, you know, roughly midway through the program itself. Okay, so when that gets released, you will not have probably got certainly to the third topic of the fourth topic of the 4 that Credential has outlined, for example, which is banking and payments. So the literature synthesis, you know, it's relatively straightforward. So you will decide on, you know, if we take the 3 core topics, so the first one is introductory, but the 3 core topics, you'll decide yourself, you know, what is the kind of core topic you'd like to look at, and that might be driven by your own personal interest, or perhaps by where you're working, for example. And you will be able to then delve into some of this academic literature, which we have, you know, collected for you through the microcredential, and prepare your literature review around that. So that would probably come roughly, I would think, roughly, you know, maybe 1/3 or halfway through the course. But that'll be released then as a single block. The case study then would be released actually around the same time, roughly, at that stage. So Credential, do you want to speak to the case study?
Yeah, Mark, sorry, do you want to stop sharing so they don't stare at the gray screen?
Yes, yes, sorry.
Not that our face might be better, but, you know.
No.
For the case study, that's essentially, it's an end of the course submission, and really how much time you spend on it can vary. Okay, so I tend to say there are 2 ways of approaching a case study. One is just using secondary information, and one is using primary information. I think so. If you, for example, if you get access to a fintech company that you can actually get someone to agree to an interview or something like that, but I think that's all value added. Of course, it might require a bit more time, but it's the actual output can be much higher quality, and of course you have a chance to get an higher mark. But it's hard. It's really hard to say how much time it might require, because it's really how you approach and how deep you want to go. I've seen a good case study last year, say with the previous cohort, very well written, only based on second information. And I've seen a not so good case study based on primary information. So it's really, it depends what kind of what's your target really for the final mark. No more than that.
Okay.
I don't know, for example, I don't know what your situation is in terms of if you're working for a fintech company or a financial services company or something like that. But even if that was the case, nothing stops you from doing a case study on your own company or the company you're working for.
Sure. And is, we'll say, when those two elements of work are released to you, do you get a specific time frame then to have them back to you? Is it, you have to have the case study within a week, or what's?
Well, you will have deadlines. The submission needs to be submitted by this day at this time, and everything will be online. So
yeah,
it's not Pierangelo switching off the system or Mark switching off the system, but it's a hard cutoff. And you get a date for both of them. And of course, they will be, probably, I don't think we have worked out the dates yet, but at least 10 days or 2 weeks apart from each other.
Okay.
So that you don't have to submit both of them on the same day or something like that.
Yeah, and then you'll get sufficient period of time then to get those two bodies of work done. So the deadlines for both will be towards the end of the course. So you have plenty of time then to get both of those done, because we're conscious of the fact that you will be doing both in parallel at some point. Again, it's more likely that the review literature synthesis will be released first, and that will be followed then by the case study. But there will be a period where you will be managing both in tandem. But you'll have plenty of time to get those done.
Great. And my last question, thanks for that. My last question is, so you've said that this is the second time this course has run. Just in terms of the numbers uptake on it for the first year last year in February, how many did you have attending, or that actually did the course last year?
Yeah, so the numbers last year actually were low enough. So we had 13 originally signed up, and then it landed at 11. And the 11 then kind of completed the course. Now, I know they kind of sound small, but there was a very short lead up to it. In fact, it was only a 2-week period of promotion for the course. So I think that's a big factor. And obviously there's a big difference now, because we've had an opportunity to kind of promote the course much more extensively now. Again, I think another problem with that short lead up time was, of course, that because people are often doing this through work, they sometimes will get the company to cover it, and obviously 2 weeks is too short a time frame to get it to a line manager and get approval for that. So again, I expect it will be much better numbers for this iteration, but it's still very good numbers actually for, as I said, a very short 2-week period of promotion of the course, but we're very keen really to get to the market, because there's no other institution that's offering the fintech program in the Dublin region, in fact.
Great.
Nationally as well, so that's kind of why we want to get to market quickly, but that did leave us short in terms of promotion time. But now, for example, we have this webinar where we've had a very good sign up to it, and hopefully we will be able to do another one maybe later on as well. Yeah.
Okay. And did you have can I ask on the pass rate then with that group of people? Was there a high pass rate?
There was, yeah. Almost everybody passed it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. There are the questions I had.
Brilliant. Thanks, Martina.
Okay.
So is there any other questions from anyone in the group?
Connor Daly here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Connor. How are you doing?
Yeah. Just a quick question around the online platform, like the interaction between students. Haven't really used Future Learn before. Is there a chance for is it mainly discussion board, or is there a kind of video interaction? I assume. some sort. Could you give us kind of a bit of more understanding about that kind of platform?
Yeah. So the platform, I suppose it's it's a very nicely designed platform, very user friendly. I suppose it follows the kind of typical kind of social network design, really, in terms of the ability to comment at the end of each of the topics. So effectively, the way the course is structured is, okay, we've got those 4 blocks of topics, and then those topics are broken into weeks, and then each week is broken into individual steps. And so at the end of each individual step, which a step is, it could be, for example, a bit of text that you have to read. It could be a video that you have to look at. It might be something where you have to interact and maybe provide us with a reflection on the course or whatever. At the end of each of those steps, there is the opportunity to comment. And so we would encourage you to comment on that step. And usually we have some prompts and questions that will encourage that. And then as people comment on an individual step, obviously they get to see your comments, you get to see theirs, and you can actually start to interact with the students. Okay, and obviously the more people that we have signed up for the course, the better that dynamic is going to be. But a lot from the last day, like a lot of the questions would have come to myself and Crowdfunding initially, and then we would go back and try and answer some of the queries and questions that people have, and then that would subsequently be followed by other students given a link to something that they've read about this topic or whatever. You know what I mean? So there's a nice little kind of interaction that can occur there. So, but that's all text-based. So it's a text-based interaction, and I suppose future learning does follow what's called a kind of a social learning model. So that interaction is really encouraged, because I think that's how you learn. So you learn from the content, but then you also learn in a kind of a peer-to-peer way. Now, in terms of the interaction, then that's not the only way that we interact. So the way we are designing or have designed the course is that we have intermittently Zoom conference calls with the entire group. Okay, and that actually worked quite well last year, and we will be replicating that for this iteration as well. And basically, as I said, sporadically we have these sessions, and they're kind of a Q&A session effectively. So it gives you an opportunity to talk to myself and Crowdfunding, again, virtually face-to-face, but on a Zoom session like this. And you can ask some further questions on any content. So again, if there's anything that kind of confused you, or you wanted to get some clarification on, or you wanted to explore a bit further, again, you can use those sessions to interact. And again, the beauty of them is that, from last year's sessions, there were some really, really good people that signed up to the course. And some were actually working in the fintech space, and some were working in the financial services space. And there were some people where this was completely new to them. And we got some really nice kind of interactions and inputs and insights from people, particularly those that were working in the fintech space, because they were able to kind of give their own insight to their company that they were working with. And a lot of these were small startups. So in terms of the interaction with the group, you've got the platform which facilitates it, as I talked about there, but then we do have these Zoom sessions where you can interact with myself and Crowdfunding and the group in a more human touch kind of way.
Okay, great. Thanks for the answer. Cheers.
Hi there.
Hi, Owen.
Owen here. So just wondering to what extent the course delves into financial services regulation. Would it mostly be on the third topic, or does it cover kind of regulatory considerations across the 3 topics?
Yeah, so actually we cover regulation across the 3 topics actually. So at the end of each of the topics, we discuss regulation pretty extensively. There's obviously, regulation is interesting because it's changing and it's kind of moving, but we do cover the regulation, and then we also then talk about future trends around each of the topics as well at the end of the course. And there's plenty of associated kind of reading material that we've identified that will help with that. Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
Great stuff. Thanks, Owen. Okay, any other questions from anybody? No? So hopefully that presentation that we made has given you kind of better insight in terms of what's been covered, you know. And I said that the three core topics that we've identified are obviously kind of three kind of really interesting and kind of hot areas in terms of fintech. Now obviously there's a lot more, and we talked about what were the topics that we would include and not include in the course. Again, there may be further things coming down the road as we're working on a few initiatives. But those three areas we identified are kind of real critical in terms of, again, the peer-to-peer lending, the blockchain and cryptocurrency space, and then the banking and payments, and particularly around banking in terms of digital banks. This open banking initiative, which has been driven here in the European Union by the new regulation, the Payment Services Directive 2. You know, there's quite a lot of coverage across those three topics. So again, you know, I think it connects the mark for a lot of different people coming from a lot of different areas, depending on, again, what your particular circumstances are, you know. But I guess I would say, listen, no doubt with webinars like this, sometimes there's questions that pop up after the session. So I would say, if there's any questions that anybody has, also we'll give an opportunity now in a second if you do have any questions again. But again, if something strikes you afterwards, I think feel free to contact myself or Credential. You'll be able to find us on the DCU website. So if you just Google our names, you'll find us. And you'll see our contact details. So just feel free to send us an email. More than happy to do that.
Hi, sorry to interrupt. I just got cut out for a second. Just have a question. Yeah, my name is Anna. Kind of wanted to get to know about the specifics of the case study. I know we talked about it before, but I was just wondering if you can kind of give a bit of a layout what exactly case study you think will represent itself. So do we need to choose a company and kind of do research on it, or whether, like, would it be more kind of general or kind of a bit of a specifics, if that's possible?
Yeah, Mark, I'll take it.
Yeah.
So for the case study, it's up to you, say, to identify the company. And what we are really looking for is for interesting stories about fintech applications, okay, in those companies. Say how they might be, how they change, for example, their business model, turning into more fintech-oriented kind of products, or it could be about the startups, so starting from scratch in the fintech space. It could be an established company developing a fintech project, something like that. As long as it's in the fintech space, and that's fine. So, but you need to identify the company, and you need to decide what approach you're taking. If it's going for some primary evidence, so trying to interview someone, for example, to actually flesh out the story around the project, around the company, if that's a startup, or try to go through secondary information, which might be just for example, try to find existing documentation about the company, their project, their ideas, and so on. So it's the final output is very flexible in terms of formatting, in terms of the number of, just have a limited number of words. I think it was something around 5,000, something like that. But
Okay.
more about the story around innovation. More.
Okay. And would you say, for example, was it 70%? Yeah, it's like for a good mark, would I need to do like a lot of various interviews? Like how much in depth do I need to go? Because I will have like 2 weeks, as you said before, so quite a limited time to reach out and got as much research as I can. So what is the standard?
You don't really have 2 weeks only to do the case study. First of all, you know that you need to write a case study by the end.
Okay. Right, yes.
Nothing stops you from approaching people and try to get interviews beforehand. And
yes.
What you're really, I guess, I mean, you probably definitely have more than 2 weeks in terms of understanding what are the expectations in terms of length of the case study or something like that. So it's not a 2 week thing.
Okay, yeah.
So my suggestion would be, if you're aiming for a high mark in that component, try to get get someone, to get 1 or 2 key people in that company to tell you the story behind it.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, so is there any other questions that struck anybody?
Just to reiterate the message there, if you have any questions in the next few days or whatever, just feel free to reach out by email. You can find us on the DCU website, or you can find us on LinkedIn, if that makes things easier for you. I think both of us are fine with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so again, just one last call if there's any final questions maybe before we.
It's probably worth mentioning the registration deadline, which should be somewhere around the 2nd or the 3rd of October, just a few days, at least say a couple of days before the beginning of the course. So that's just something that you should probably take in mind, because if you miss the deadline, then you have to wait for the next round. Otherwise, there is no, you won't be able to join halfway through or something like that.
Yeah, and actually it's probably worth pointing out as well, so that is in my mind to mention that. So again, just if you are interested in registering for the course, so again, it is through FutureLearn that you register for the course. And then what will happen subsequently is, once you've registered and obviously made payment for the course, well then the registration process internally in DCU will occur. And so what that basically means is that you will be a registered student with DCU, and that means you then get access to all of the resources that students will be able to access as normal. Okay, so again, you'll see that when you get into the course, we reference a lot of academic papers, along with referencing industry reports, relevant industry reports, and so on. But there is a lot of referencing to relevant academic papers. All of those academic studies will be available to you through the library's electronic database of journals. Okay, so you won't have any issues in terms of accessing any of the content on the course. Okay, but that will come once you become registered students with DCU. But the first protocol, though, again, is to register with FutureLearn. Okay, and they process that element of it, and they process the payment and so on. And then once you're signed up to the course, then we will initiate the internal registration of you as a student here in DCU. Okay, and as I said, then you will get full access to all of the available resources. But the key thing, I think, is really the library resources and that database of electronic journals. Okay, so again, just to clarify that's how that kind of works, and then you'll get a student email address and so on, and you'll be registered on our internal systems. You'll then get access as well to our internal learning management system. We call it Loop, but it's basically a Moodle platform. So again, some people might have used Moodle in the past as a learning management system, okay, as a student. So that's the system that we use in DCU. So again, as part of your registration, you would get access to that platform. And actually we use that platform then to share the assignments, okay, so to share the literature synthesis and to share the case study assignment with you, okay. But as Pranav says, first protocol is FutureLearn and register before the deadline, which is set out in the platform. Yeah, but I think it's a few days before the course starts on the 5th of October. Great. So yeah, okay. So listen, is there any final questions that anybody has thought of now? And if not, then we'll bring the session maybe to an end, I guess, at this stage. I think as Pranav said, again, just to reiterate for a third time, again, if you do have any questions at all, just get in contact. We'd be more than happy to get back to you. And listen, I hope that was informative for you and helpful in making your decision. And on behalf of myself and Branch and maybe the DC, I hope that you do sign up for the course. We're quite proud of what we've put together, and hopefully you'll see the benefit of it as well. And I think all of those that went through the course last year, were very complimentary of the course. Okay, it's intense, it's going to push you, but I think it'll be well worthwhile that effort over the 10 weeks if we get you signed up. So yeah, hopefully we'll see you all virtually on the 5th of October as part of the course. Okay, so maybe on that note, maybe we'll end it there, Crandall, yeah?
Yeah. Thank you all for attending this webinar today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your time, everybody, okay? And like I said, feel free to reach out if there's anything else that we can help you with.
All right.
Thanks. Thank you.
Great stuff. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for your time.